Welcome to another great video, guys. We're getting ready to kick off this project of making this dining room scene. First order of business is to go over a few things. First thing I want to discuss is kind of how we're going to set up these files. So one way I like to work in Blender is I like to basically have different assets that are in their own files, and then I'll either import them in using attach, and I'll show you the options. I won't get too deep into the weeds with it here yet. But I want to show you how to do that, how to work modularly with your files. So the first thing we're going to do before we start building out this table is we're going to set up and establish how we're going to set up our files to keep everything just nice and clean. So if I need to go back in and change a model or change a texture or change one thing, I don't have to dig through a whole bunch of mess throughout my parent file to figure this out. So we're going to do that first. Very quickly, I'm going to go over that and go over the logic behind it. And then once we got that set up, then we're going to go in and pull in our reference, and we're going to start building out the table. So by the end of this video, we're going to have established two things. We're going to establish one, file structure and for a big scene like this, and secondly, we're going to have a table that is to scale, by the way, and then that we can texture and then get ready to go. And then we're going to, in rapid succession, like I was saying in our intro video, we're going to start working on other items until we get everything built out, and then we're going to put it all together, and then we're going to light it. It's going to be awesome. So stay tuned, stick by, and let's go ahead and kick off going over this structure, and then we'll get into building the table. See you there. So as we look right here, we've got a main file called scene.blend, and in here we're going to have all of our other files that we're going to create independently that are going to merge together by importing or attaching into that scene blend file. So our final file that we produce will be scene.blend, but it's going to import assets that we create in each of our videos into this one. And that's going to allow us to have a really clean workflow and a very modular approach to creating this scene. All right, so I'm in my file manager on my Mac. This works the same way if you're in Linux or in Windows. You would run your respective programs there, and right now you can see the folder that I'm in is blank. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here, I'm going to create a new directory or a new folder. I'm going to rename it. This one's going to be where I want to keep maybe some textures, so I'm going to create textures there. And then what I want in here, because it really, I guess for me it really doesn't matter. You can break it down, a folder for models and a folder for scenes to keep it safe. I guess for the sake of this video, let's do that. I'm going to create a folder called models. I'm going to create another one called scenes. And then I'm going to move the respective Blender files into the proper folders, if that makes sense. Okay. Back up here and let's do this. What I want to do here is I want to go back in my folder. So let's go to scenes, and I'm going to create my first file here, scene.blend, right? And then I'm going to save it. Then I'm going to come in here, and I am also going to do a save as. I'm going to back out one. I'm going to go into models, and then I'm going to call this one table.blend. We can do this for every one of these if we'd like, but there's no sense in it at the moment. So what I want to do is go back in here, and I'm going to pull up my scene.blend file, and I'm going to do a little housekeeping like so. So let's go here. Let's delete this. And let's just save this out, right? So for right now, we're good to go. And if I go to models, I got a table.blend file. And if I go to scenes, I have a scene.blend file. So this is a good start. What we're going to do is we're going to cobble everything together into this one, but we're individually going to go into models, and we're going to create individual Blender files for each asset. Asset being a table, or the flowers, or a chair, or floor, or something like that. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. So that's what we're going to do. So now that we've established that, and we've got a table.blend file, we're getting ready to dive in and do the first asset, the first model of the table, using a reference photo. It's not a schematic, but it's what we got. And I'm going to show you guys how to work with very limited resources to get the best thing you can get. So as we come back, let's knock it out. All right, see you guys in a second. We're now getting into the heart of things. We're getting ready to start building this table. So let's go ahead and rock and roll with this. First thing I want to do here, I'll turn my screencast keys on for you guys, is I want to bring in a reference. Move away from that there. And then let's go here. Let's pop in a circle, right? And for whatever reason, this is grayed out. I'm running Blender 4.4, but I don't know what's going on. I don't want 32, but you know, whatever, we'll make it work. So let's just stick with the 32. Let's get it about right here. And let's move reference up. Keep in mind, guys, this is going to be kind of not perfectly. The perspective is not right, but we're gonna fake it a little bit. And what I want to do here is I want to grab all of these verts right here at the end. I'm gonna delete them. So now that gives me these verts here to move on X and try to match as best I can with this here table, right? So what I'm gonna do here is Control D these on X, like so, and I want to rotate these on Y by 180 degrees, and then finish moving these guys out, right, like so. Okay, so now let me hide that. All right, so I'm gonna take this guy and I'm gonna take this guy, and I'm gonna extrude them along X close to these two, like so. Well, I like that. And then I'm gonna grab these two. A couple ways of doing this. I'm gonna show you probably the easier way. I'm gonna take that one and then take that one. I'm gonna hit M, merge the last. Boom, it connects them. Do the same thing here. Grab that one, M, merge the last. And now I've got my primitive shape for my table, right? So let me hide this again. And what I want to do here is I want to start looking at the topology a little bit here. So let's just go ahead and fill this with an Ngon for the time being. And we'll do topology and then geometry. We'll clean all that stuff up here in a second. So first thing I want to do is I want to pull this out here. Go back to object mode so I can look at my scale. And then I want to scale this by the proper proportion. So if we look at the schematic here, you see there are two views. One is a top view of this table that basically shows the three little leaves in it, or I should say the one side of the table, the other side of the table, and leaf in the middle. Three sections of this table. There's measurements for everything. Then you see the total width and length of the table, but you also have a side view that shows you different parts of the table, the height and widths and so on and so forth, and how that table's broken down. That's kind of how we're going to build it. So I want you guys to be aware of like kind of how I measured the table in order to try to model it. So we're going to take these values, we're going to go back to Blender here in a second, plug those in as we build these pieces, and then we will have this thing that is absolutely to scale. Okay, I'm back here in Blender now, so I want to turn my reference back on just for a hot second, and I want to notice something here. See this little line right here? That's kind of like a bevel cut into that table. So let's go ahead and let's try to mimic that as best we can. So I'm going to do an inset. I'm going to bring it in about that far. And I granted this table doesn't have any depth on it yet, but and we're not going to worry about that yet. So I'm going to grab this whole thing, and what I want to do is I want to extrude it on Z, and I'm going to bring it down just a hair. Let's come back to object mode, turn off the deal here, and let's grab some loops. So this is good what we have here, and what I want to do is I want to bring this up just a hair on Z, about that much, because I'm going to show you what we're going to do here. We're going to scale it out, but we're going to constrict the Z scale, and then I want to extrude it again on Z about that far, and we're going to do the same thing again. About like that, and then we're going to leave it flat. So a couple things we did was we gave this table a nice little shape here, but we also kept our inset here in place, and now we have some things set up to where we can start playing with our geometry here. So first thing I'm going to do, go to top view so I have a symmetric view of everything here, and I'm going to join these verts. I'm not going crazy. I'm just going to try to get like a nice little baseline. And see, right, these cuts right here, these may very well work out for us in terms of the leaves that we put in here. But if they don't, we're okay with that too, because I'm gonna measure this so that they're right. Right now it's just part of the geometry. So let's not think too much into it. And what I'm doing here is I'm kind of looking around. I'm gonna bring these two together here, like that. And a lot of times what you can do is you can count your verts. I think this was like 32. I wanted 16, but for whatever reason with my blender, I couldn't change that value. I'm gonna go back in here. I'm gonna clean up some of this geo. Actually, before I do that, I wanna put a loop cut right here in the center, because this is gonna be my frame of reference for when I start measuring out that leaf in the middle. What you're looking at right here is I've gone in and cleaned up the geometry on this side, but keep in mind, since this is not like a mirror modifier or anything applied to this, because the shape is not going to be the same, it's going to need to be flat here on the bottom. We also need to go here, look on the bottom, and essentially do the same thing. I won't waste your time on the video watching me do all this, but just keep in mind you're going to need to fix your geometry on the bottom of your mesh as well. Now we've done that, what I want to do is I want to come here, go to top view, go to face select mode, and very simply I want to grab everything that's inside of that inset right there. And let's turn on this reference here. You can't really tell. I know what the table looks like because I'm the one that photographed it, so just kind of trust me here. If you really scroll in here, you can see that this whole piece right here lifts up a bit. So literally that's what we're going to do here. Let me disable it so it doesn't interfere with what we're doing here. And I'm going to extrude this up on Z just a tad right here. I'm also going to select everything and hit Shift N to make sure our normals are good. You just do one of these at a time. So let me bevel this guy here. I want a tight bevel right there. That looks good. Actually, let me do arc. Let's grab this one, make sure we got everything, select it. Yep, all looks good. And let me tighten this one up as well. Okay. I want that round really nice. Then let's grab this. Like I said, I want it real tight. Boom. Yeah. All right, so let's turn sub D back on. Shade smooth. Now we're good to go. Yeah, this looks good now. All right, so save my file. So the good news is we've got minus the leaves, and I'm not gonna have it where we can split it. I just want it to look like you can split it. So basically I'm gonna measure these out, create cuts, and then that's gonna be pretty much it. So let me show you guys how to do this thing here where we get these measurements right. So the image said that the total length of the table, if I'm not mistaken, was 60 inches, right? So let's look at this in terms of axes. So our axis here is X, so X would be 60 inches. And notice I'm in metric, but it doesn't matter. Blender's smart enough, you just type 60 inches. See, and it spreads it out. Going in here on the Y-axis and put in 4 feet. Now this table looks weird in the viewport. I can assure you it's just perspective. That is what the table looks like, and those are the measurements for the table. So this is accurate. It's 5 foot on X, 4 feet on Y, and Z we'll leave alone because we just kind of pulled it out. Maybe we'll tweak Z a little bit. We'll leave it. And notice our scale is off. So one thing I want to do is Control A and then apply the scale, and then it goes back to 0. So now this is what the table looks like. Now we're going to go down here, and there's like a little platform below here, and I'm going to make that. So the way I think I want to handle this is bringing it in a cube. We'll scale it down, and I did measure this thing. So this will be 3.5 inches. Now this piece here, I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm eyeballing this piece. And my blender does show some perspective on the screen, so it might throw off a little bit what it really looks like. All right. I said that's pretty good right there. Okay. So the way this thing works is it's got like a cut in here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna Shift D, Z, and I'm gonna scale it in a little bit. Get it here at the bottom, scale it up a little bit, about that much. And I'm gonna bring it back up on Z, and I wanna cut it. Actually, let me do one other thing before I do that. Let me scale it up on X. Because I'm essentially gonna take this and make a cutter. So let's get it at a little bit of perspective so you guys can see what I'm actually doing here. And I'm gonna bring it up in here like so. I'm gonna bring it all the way up in there, and I'm gonna select that, and I'm gonna select that. I'm gonna go here, I'm gonna go to my Boolean operations. So go to Boolean, and I want difference, and the object that I want, this one, cube 1, and then I can take cube 1 here and hit H and hide it, and I can move this guy into a collection, and I'm gonna do one, I'm gonna call it cutter. And just so you notice it, I'll make it red. Bam, so like that. And what I can do actually is I can apply that, but I'm just not going to at the moment. So there's my little frame up under there, and then from here our legs will connect to this. I've taken the liberty to go in and make that little bottom part there. I ended up going ahead and applying the Boolean modifier and cleaned up the geometry here. So that's all good. And what I want to do now is I want to go ahead and parent this to the tabletop here. And once we've done that, I'll save that out, and then we can go ahead and like give this stuff a name here. So I'm going to go right in here. I'm going to call this model.table.top. I'm going to create a new collection, model.table. Okay. And we want to move that back into there. So it is now in there with that. I'll close my collection out. So now these are still parented, but now we've got them in the same collection, so you don't see them separated anymore. And one other thing I want to notice here that's kind of funky looking is I want to go in here. I want to set origin to geometry. So I want my origin to be right here in the center of this mesh. Let me go in here and select this guy and do the same thing. You can either right click or you can go up here at the top, do it either way. All right. So now I got my origins taken care of, and we're good there. Now we're gonna tackle the leg. This is gonna be easier than you might think. So first thing I wanna do is I wanna come in here and let's make a couple little changes to some things. I'm gonna put this in a collection, these reference files. And I'm gonna do my little color thing like normal so I can very quickly see that collection and separate it visually from the other ones. I'm gonna go into filters, I'm gonna turn this option here on that allows me to lock the entire reference so I don't accidentally click it and move it around when I'm trying to make some changes here. So there's the leg, I've got it into place, and if you notice the little wooden block on the picture matches my block in the model. So now I'm gonna come here, I'm gonna create a cube. I'm sizing it down to this leg. Let's zoom in so you guys can see a little bit better. And really all I'm gonna do is trace the shape of this. I'm in X-ray mode so I can actually see the image behind it. And I can when I grab these two verts here, I'm actually grabbing all four. So this allows me to put this into place, and then I'm just gonna extrude, I'm gonna scale and extrude this down until I roughly get this shape. All right, that looks pretty good. So let's go ahead and scale this and extrude it down. And we're just gonna take our time here and just try to get this as close as possible. Keep in mind, I'm keeping X-ray mode on, so when I go to grab the vertices that I see in this orthographic view, like so, I just grabbed two vertices, not one. It looks like I grabbed one, but because I have X-ray on, I grabbed the one on the other side too, which is exactly what I wanted. So I just grabbed 4. I'm going to extrude these down. And I'm just kind of putting stuff into place, as you can see, just to kind of, run along the contour of this leg. Doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, but let's just try to get it as close as we can, because what we're going to do is we're going to let sub D do its thing with the natural rounding that it does to kind of get that very nice curvature that you see from the photo here. And this tapers down a little bit, so I'm going to scale it. And as you can see, I'm just kind of tweaking it. And let's add in a loop cut right here, because I want to make sure that tapers in a little bit more right there. There you go. Now let's extrude this down some more. Let's get it into place here. And we should do it one more time. This gets us down here at the bottom of the table leg. Like so. And you can rotate it to snug it up. All right. So when I look here on the other side of this, that leg is a bit fat. So what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of look at the contour here of this leg. And turn that reference off so we can see what we're doing here. I had a picture that I shot kind of at an angle in the front, so I could see the corner in which this cube would be rotated on. But it's not really helping me in terms of like making that the width of the leg correct. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the contour of the leg and just try to figure it out, if that makes sense. I could have tried to like edge it all right here, but I didn't think that was probably going to be a smart move. So I just want to go ahead and disable it, and I'm just going to kind of look at the contour of the leg itself and determine how wide or how thick it should be. And you'll see that we ended up doing a pretty good job. So still in X-ray mode, I want to grab all of these verts and I just want to taper them in. And I'm going to turn proportional editing on, and you see it gets us most of the way there, because I want to perfect this one leg before I do anything else. And as I begin to work on these individual sets of verts that I'm messing with down here near the bottom, I turn proportional editing off. So I'm only making changes to those. All right, that looks pretty good. So now let's go ahead and select some some edges, I should say. And grab all these on the bottom to make the perimeter there. I'm gonna grab the ones at the top to make the perimeter up at the top. And what we're gonna want to do here is run a bevel on these. And why, you may ask? Well, when I run sub D on it, it's going to keep the shape that we want. There you go. Look at that. There's your leg. All right. So now I want to go ahead and double check to make sure the height is right. It's compared to our measurements. And bam, it's right on the money. So we're good there. And I just want to make sure we're good because the scale was off. So now the scale is good. So this table has 4 legs, not 1. So the first thing I want to do is go in here and put an array modifier on it and a mirror modifier on it. Once we got the array modifier with the 2 legs, I run a mirror modifier. I'm using the little platform in the middle or the square as the center point. As you saw, I clicked on it and now we got 4 legs. And now the table is modeled, but we're not quite done yet because I want to select the legs and I want to parent them to the platform. So let's do that and keep transform. And then I'm going to go back into the collection for the model. I want to open it up, see how I'm parenting, and I just want to give these other pieces a name. So there's our platform. right? And then there's the leg. So let's go ahead and rename the leg. So I'm gonna call it model.table.leg. Okay, so up here it says cube. Let's give this one a name, model.table.platform. And the only reason why I do that is if later I have a really complicated mesh and I have a bunch of nested pieces in there, I know what's what. And so cube 1, cube 2, cube 3 doesn't tell us anything, right? So I'm just kind of giving it a name. But there's our model. So the next thing we're going to look at doing is doing some UV work, and then we're going to apply some textures to it, and then we're going to be done. All right, so now we're getting ready to tackle UV mapping. UV mapping is essentially like specifically marking areas of our geometry to let Blender know how we want textures to wrap around it. You can kind of think about figuring out what part of a box you want to start the gift wrapping paper on, so when you wrap it over right, you don't see the crazy seams. I mean, maybe it's kind of a silly analogy, but that's essentially what we're doing. So what I'm doing here is I selected that edge loop at the bottom, which you're not likely to see, and I marked the seam. And then I selected that little piece where that little bevel is and marked the seam on the tabletop. So I think that's going to be good enough for us here. So now let's go ahead and select the platform. And as you'll see, I'm trying to grab seams that usually on the bottom. In this case, I think I'm gonna grab it on the top and the bottom, because now I can run the texture around the outside and the inside in a different orientation than the top if I want to. So think about like wood grain. I can specify what direction I want the grain to run in. Do I want to run horizontally? Do I want to run diagonally? Do I want to run vertically? That kind of thing. So I'm kind of going in here because we got bevels in here. And I'm making sure that we get all of these edge loops that run around the outside of this thing. And I'm trying to grab the edge loops that's more in the center than not, so that just, you know, when we do mark these seams for unwrapping it out, where it's laying out flat, like say like a roll of gift paper, before you wrap a present, we want to make sure that this looks as good as possible. We don't want a bunch of seams everywhere, because then it's very obvious that we did some unwrapping work here. So I'm just marking seams right now. I'm just kind of figuring out in my head where I want this thing to be unwrapped. Now we're going to tackle the leg. I want to isolate it and do the same thing. I want to make sure I grab this part here at the top. You'll never see it because it's shoved up in the table. So this is the ideal place to do a seam. I'm just grabbing all these edges here, making sure I'm getting all the little edges as part of that bevel. Going to do the same thing at the bottom because it's going to be beveled the same way. Maybe you can see this one a little bit better. So I'm just grabbing everybody here, all the way around. And then I'm going to tell Blender to mark seam. And then what I want to do is I want to make sure that the orientation of this leg, I want to grab the seam on the inside back side of this leg, because that's the one that the user's not as likely to see. So if we use a weird texture on here that does cause some kind of seam clipping or something like that, then we just don't see it. All right, so I'm gonna go all the way down and just make one seam down here, or some people call it cuts. I'm gonna make one cut down here. So when we fillet this thing out, it lays out flat, and that allows us to take this 2D image, which is U and V, essentially it's X and Y, and it allows us to apply this X and Y 2D image onto a 3D surface. If we're taking a 3D surface, we're laying it out flat, rolling it out flat, we are essentially superimposing a 2D image on it, and then Blender is then taking it and rolling it back up to a 3D thing. That's essentially what's going on with UV mapping. So now I'm going into EV or look dev mode, and I want to create a texture, a test texture. That's why it's going to look crazy, but it's kind of, I like it. I think it's kind of cool, the color, the little color bars. And before we apply our texture to it, I just want to see how our UV unwrapping work went. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to do a cube projection. And I want to create a new material. And like I said, guys, this is just a test material. I don't even care to give it a name. I'm going to make it 4K. So I'm going to do 4096 for the width and the height square. And then I want to do the color gradient And bam, this is a test texture that's available in Blender. There's also another one, a UV texture. It's kind of new. It's like a black and white checkerboard, but I like the color one because it looks kind of cool. Gives you a little bit more detail in terms of where you are in the texture. So now I'm gonna go to Look Dev here in my shader tab, and let's turn the scene world off so I can actually see it. I'm going to create a new material, and then I'm gonna pull down from my material list that untitled texture we just made, that test texture we just made, and you're gonna see it apply to the top of the table. After I do a couple things. So I need to bring in the image texture, and then I've got Node Wrangler running, so I just hit Control T, and I got a mapping and a texture coordinate node, and now I can apply that so I can see how well my unwrapping work was. The same here. Let's come out of isolation mode and look at everything. Okay. Let's do the same thing to the platform, and then we're going to tackle the legs. So I'm going to grab it, Q project. I could unwrap it here, which I should have done. It would have gotten the size right, but this one was pretty easy. I just didn't bother to do it. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to pick that same texture, that untitled test texture that we created, and you're going to see it applies it automatically to it. And this UV work looks pretty decent here. The only thing I'd say about this is it doesn't look right, and I may do it offline and fix it while we continue the video, is that the sizing of the grid is not the same as the table. So now notice the legs. I just applied the shader to the legs, and notice this one looks crazy. That's because we never properly unwrapped the legs. Now I did Q projection here, and it looks crazy. So the way you handle this is you go back onto the UV tab, right click, and then actually unwrap it. And now you can see it reads where I marked those seams or those cuts, and now it's properly rolling out that 3D leg into 2D, superimposing the texture on it, and then when I come back out, it rolls it back up. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going in here into my Blender Kit account, and I'm just gonna find a really nice texture. There's no need to have to make this from scratch. It's just a wasting of time. So we're gonna use the tools we have at our disposal to our leverage, and this looks like a nice texture. I've used it before. It has a really good displacement on it, and if you see, I just applied it right to the tabletop, now the platform, and now the legs. Tabletop and platform look great, but the legs, I don't want the grain going horizontal. I want the grain going vertical. So I'm going to show you how to fix this, but I'm going to show you, due to the fact that we UV map this properly, then you'll be able to quickly go in there and change it. So I'm going into edit mode, going into legs, back in the UV tab, and I'm going to unwrap it again. And then I'm going to turn off the little option here to where you see the selection. And I'm going to go and hold down Control on the UV side, and I'm going to rotate this 90 degrees. And now you notice with my legs, my grain went vertical. Why am I not seeing the grain? Because I just still have the test image selected on the UV side, but through Blender Kit we actually applied the texture of the wood grain to that particular part of the mesh, so we're still good to go. Alright, so I am sitting here, I'm looking at something for a second, coming back out, we're good to go here. So what I'm going to do is give this a really good look over. Now granted, I probably could make that grain smaller, and the way you do that would be to go back in and just adjust the UV mapping to where I can scale up the selection, and that makes the grain smaller, or if I scale it down, it makes the grain bigger. However, the way I have it here, it's fine. It looks good. Almost has a stylized look to it. I'm going to bring in a plane, and the reason why, it's just going to help me see this better. And then I'm going to go into cycles, and I want you guys to be able to see the displacement. You can kind of see it in Eevee, in Look Dev mode here. This is Blender 4.4.0, just came out Tuesday of this week. And if you're looking at this video years later, it is currently March of 2025. So 4.4 just came out, so this is the first time I've run cycles in 4.4. I downloaded it the other day, been busy with other stuff, hadn't even really touched it a whole lot. So it's just compiling the shaders and the kernels, Takes a little bit, but I'm just going to go ahead and let you guys see it. I'm not even going to bother cutting it out of the video unless it gets too long, and then I will cut it. But if you hear me saying all this, obviously I didn't cut it. So here we go. So I guess I didn't cut it. So I'm going to bring in a couple of lights. And this is a really cool plugin that I use to just quickly bring in area lights. It's called Light Wrangler. It's by Lynlet Altman. Probably one of the most, best developers in terms of supporting his work. I mean, this guy's always like pumping out updates for this thing, and his Discord channel is always busy. Really engaged with his users. Really good developer, and really useful tool. I've done some really cool renders just by using this tool. Not because it made it better, it just made it very easy for me to bring in lights. And I was able to focus on my artistic style more so than the technical aspect. So really love this Light Wrangler add-on. So if you guys can ever get it, show Lynlet some love and tell him LM3 Official sent you, please. But anyway, I'm bringing in some lights really for your purpose here, so you can see the grain, you can see the displacement, and you can see that wood really looks carved. But we have full control over how this wood grain looks on this model by the UV mapping. So that was the purpose of showing you this. But with all that being said, me just kind of screwing around with lights real quick, we're done with this model. We have modeled the table. Now, for the next version of this, before we add the chairs and that sort of thing in, I'm probably going to dial back the displacement on this and scale up the wood grain, scale down the wood grain a little bit so it's just a little smaller. But other than that, I mean, this is the process to do this. And we are done. So if you've made it this far, you've done a good job. If you like this content, like and subscribe for more videos. We're just getting started, so more videos to come. Enjoy.